Got some oysters and mussels.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love mussels.
Yeah. Can you get them out there?
Yeah, you get them here, yeah. Um, I never really liked them at all when I was young. I hated them. And for some reason, I got into them a couple of years ago. And now I
Probably.
get them. I never got it. It
Probably.
seemed like a lot of hassle and disgusting.
Yeah.
But then something clicked, and now it's the first thing I go for if they're in a mix of things, you know.
Yeah, I love mussels. I think they're really underrated.
Oysters, you get oysters here too, but I don't eat many of them. I should do though.
Yeah, people talk about the oyster a lot, but I think mussels are the real workhorse of the bivalves, personally.
Are they the ones that you got the other day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically free food out here. We got these enormous mussels. Excuse me. That just grow everywhere along the coast, and they're legal to harvest. And for most of the year they're safe, and nobody really eats them except for I'll be out there and there's some old Chinese people harvesting them, but that's about it. Mm-hmm. Most people just don't consider them food.
Yeah, the ones that grow just like on the jetties and stuff around here, they're very small. They're all tiny. I never see them get to any size. And the seagulls pick them off. But aside from that, I don't see very much. They do clamming like in the back bays and stuff. You have to get a permit to go clamming, but I know there's a lot of people that do that. In like shallows, you need rakes and stuff. And they have the oyster farms.
You basically need a permit to do anything in the States now. Is that true?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Just about.
I mean, some of the things people are saying you needed a permit for. It's incredible.
Land of the free.
Mind you, the UK is probably
as long as you pay for the permit, it's free to do.
Yeah, no, it's state by state.
To do it.
Like in California, any of the shellfish you can just gather freely. There's a limit. You have a daily limit. I think it's 10 pounds per person for each species. But you don't need a permit like you do for fishing or hunting. So that's kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. The lots of places you could have like in New Jersey, you have to pay to get on the beach. If you want to have a bonfire, you have to like go to the town hall and put in for a certain date, and it can only be a certain size and all that. Aside from like some of the state parks, if you're there, they allow you to have bonfires and stuff. But it's really there's some type of piece of paper or anything you need anytime you want to do anything like that in a public area, at least, is you need to pretty much pay the town.
It's like they see someone doing something, and then some guy in an office like, you should make that guy give some money to do that. It seems to be like the process. It's just like they're like some new things. Somebody does some new thing. Okay, we'll get that guy. We'll let him do it, but he has to give some money. It's mafia, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit of extortion. It's like an old mafia trick. If you want to operate in our neighborhood, you got to pay us a piece of the pie.
Exactly. Doesn't seem to be an actual difference. Not really.
Yeah. Even the guys, the people that play music on the boardwalk too, like the buskers, they even have to file like something with the town to be able to do there, or else the cops shoo them off. I don't think sometimes like they're lenient about that, but I know a lot of the towns, they require it.
Yeah, I remember in London, they made like little zones where they drew a little circle where the busker and stuff had to be. And it kind of killed, and a lot of the buskers in London are really good, like properly quite talented, and in nice places, good places that you appreciate, because it's like a horrible tube journey with a really long transition between two stations or something in the underground. And they put these like drew these like little magic circles in the floor, and it kind of ruined there's something about that now making it standardized like that kind of ruined the nice feel of it, and now it took something away from it.
Yeah, there's a spirit to the spontaneity of the, just like someone just decided to drop there and start playing music, and now it's like, no, he's kind of planted there. Like,
now it's like a kind of fake spontaneous music playing now, where like it's set up for it. It's not like it's like play breaks for children or whatever, like rather than already been playing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. How'd you prepare the mussels, Eric?
Oh, these are just canned mussels. So I just opened the can.
Oh, I thought you said they were from the beach.
No, not these. I already ate those. That was a few days ago. I went to the beach and
okay,
gathered a bunch. And for those, I just grilled them over the fire.
Yeah.
And then once they open, then they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Just eat them. And
I didn't know if you gathered so many that you had some like on ice or something like that.
No, I mean, I tend to eat those the day of,
Mm-hmm.
Shellfish seems to really degrade pretty quick. You kind of got to do it constantly if you want to eat it. But yeah, the cool thing about those is they come pre-seasoned,
Pre-seasoned?
Yeah.
You mean the barnacles?
Yeah, the barnacles by the sea, big barnacles. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I guess the salt from the ocean and the seaweed and stuff that's on them. That's just what I'm gathering from your post about it.
Yeah. So what do you guys drinking?
What I threw out a myriad of topics. So which one did you guys like the best, or you had some thoughts on? And
Well, I liked your fitness standard post the other day. That's a good jumping off point, I think.
Oh, I never saw this. Tell us about it, Keith. What is it?
Well, in the years ago in the United States, they had like the presidential fitness standards, and I think I don't know where it started, but it was like a set of standards that every school kid could strive to achieve, and it's like 20 pull-ups and 50 sit-ups, and it's just all just basic exercises. So I was thinking about that, and I said, they don't really do that anymore. I think they did it for like a couple of years when I was in elementary school, and after that, I never heard about it again. So that was
I had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we only did it for a couple of years, maybe up until 5th grade or something, and so in 5th grade was 2001 for me, and I don't think I ever heard about it after that, not into middle school or high school. And so I don't know when they actually stopped doing that, but I was just thinking about that, and I said, well, if I was to create my own standards today, what would they be? And I called them walkabout fitness standards as opposed to presidential fitness standards. And I just shot off a little list. I think it was run a mile in under 8 minutes, only breathing through your nose, do 5 pistol squats on each leg, dead hang for 1 minute and 30 seconds, 2-minute plank, and 50 push-ups in under a minute. So I guess I was just thinking about so you could have done I could have just done the same things that I guess were part of the presidential standards and adapted them. But I was thinking about stuff that matters a little bit. So grip strength, holding yourself up in a dead hang, that matters. The push-ups are kind of whatever. There's so much that goes into a pistol squat that I think all those things combined matters. There's a lot of different types of strengths and mobility, levels of strength and mobility that you need for that. The run in the mile run, only breathing through your nose is that's a threshold of cardiovascular ability, or a standard that I think people should be able to meet. So I would say most of the people like in our sphere on Twitter should be able to reach those pretty easily or get very close. There's a couple of movements. Like I had people message me, and the biggest thing that said that would be like preventing them from hitting those standards that I set was the pistol squats. And just from the people I talked with back and forth through messaging, it didn't seem like they lacked the strength, but rather the
mobility.
They didn't have the. Maybe it is a type of strength though. I guess they didn't have the either mobility to squat down on one leg or the strength in, like, say, their hip flexors or glutes. Once they got to a certain level, like once they could get down, but they couldn't press back up, or the same thing, or they couldn't keep their leg up off the ground. And I think a lot of that has to do with hip flexors and lower abdominal strength.
There's also a psychological reason, because you can't, most exercises you can do a little bit at the start. You can do a very small or light version and get started. With your pistol squats, you can't. You have to go through a process and build up to it through some type of progressions. So like a lot of people just start like either short attention span, or they're just not interested enough and they just do something else. You can't just do it a little bit. You're not doing it for ages. And I haven't been doing them in a long time. It's a long time since I used to do them. I found what's the difference in terms of there's a type of squat I was looking at recently I hadn't really done before, is skater squats. So what's the difference between pistol squats and skater squats in this context?
So it's similar. A skater squat, your leg, it's still a single leg squat, but a skater squat, your leg goes backwards instead of forwards. So it's like as if you were to lunge backwards, but hover your knee just touches the ground, your foot stays off the ground, but you don't rest on the ground.
It's probably the same amount of raw strength required, but the pistol requires a lot more mobility, flexibility.
You can probably get to the skater quicker though, can't you? You can do it a little bit. You just put your leg back a little bit, so like you feel like you're doing it, and then you just get better and better. Whereas the pistol squat, you just feel like you can't do it.
Yeah, the skater squat too, like you can balance out your leg going backward with bringing your torso forward, so that weight is more evenly distributed. You can't do that when your leg's in front of you and then you're also doing the squat. It's hard to do. I mean, you could still kind of lunge your torso forward over your ankle, but it's harder to have that balance front and back. This skater squat, I don't think requires as much. There's a lot of compression that goes into the pistol squat too. So it's compression through the top of your quad, your hip flexor, and your lower abdominals on the off leg, on the leg that's being lifted up.
So you think it's the pistol squat is part of your standards then, because of all these things. It shows that you have all these other layers of ability in order to do it. Yeah. So, and I mean, I just made them up, to be honest with you. Like, these aren't, I just thought it was kind of like I thought it was just kind of like a funny tweet a little bit. So, I mean, it was serious, but it was also like just kind of a riff on if I was to make this up. I mean, anybody can make up their own standards for what they think is important. But I think those things that I listed, if you're able to do them, it means you have some basic level of fitness under your belt. So if you're not able to meet them, it could mean that you are deficient in some area, but not necessarily. I mean, but it's like, I don't know. I think of it in like a broad context. Like if you could do those things, I would generally think that you are able to do a lot of other things. Question about the nose breathing, running a mile, nose breathing only. You guys will know obviously about this if you've been doing the breath holding course. Is even nose breathing only, even when very hot summer? And I'm guessing that mouth breathing, one of the reasons mouth breathing is even possible is to release heat, to cool down. This is a guess. I don't know.
I would challenge that. I actually think it isn't like dogs. Like obviously dogs pant because they can't sweat. But I would think that actually breathing with your mouth, you are moving so much like the volume of air you're moving more quickly. I would think that actually brings your body temperature up, just because of the force that you have to use to do that.
What's the purpose of why are people able to mouth breathe if we're not supposed to?
I don't know.
There must be reasons. So like this is, I don't know very much about this. I know that even from like the postural mechanism point of view, nose breathing is correct because it fits in with everything else. So I don't dispute the nose breathing being correct most of the time. It's in general, but I'm just not sure about why it would be possible not to breathe through the mouth unless there was some purpose for it. So my guess was the heating thing based on looking at dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you could be spot on. I could be wrong. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or it may just be a side effect of it evolving for speech. But then again, no, it can't be that. It must be older than that. I don't know.
Do you know of anything, Eric? Why?
Not really, but thinking about what you just said, Kevin, I imagine that sort of there's one hole. If you go way back to the earliest organisms, there was probably just sort of one orifice. And then, everything kind of splintered off from there, the nose, the mouth. And so, evolution tends to be kind of, tends to conserve things. Like if it's not broken, it'll just kind of maintain it. So, and
then maybe use it for something else.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Because then, you would have had to have developed a totally separate, pipe, essentially running from the nose to the diaphragm.
Because totally the pipe itself, where you have the flap,
no crossover, no.
So like the pipe itself, like you have a flap.
There is a different one.
You have a flap that stops the food going down, or so you don't breathe food and you don't, you're not meant to swallow or whatever.
Yep.
You wouldn't really design that from scratch. That's just kind of happened, isn't it? It's kind of dodgy. So this must be tied into this. I don't know very much about this stuff. This would be interesting to, if there's any nose breathing maximalists watching, listening, let us know.
This could be bad information, but I think I remember reading somewhere that like a dog can't. What's that?
I'm saying it hasn't stopped us before. Bad information.
Oh, the bad information source. Good. I read somewhere that like a dog can't choke or like cut off its airway the same way a human can. Like if they're choking on food, it doesn't actually prevent them from breathing the same way.
Right.
Because they have, I think it's a matter of like their head and like your head, your spine or your windpipe comes up and then turns forward. And a dog is just all on the same, it's just flat out. So I think I don't know about dog anatomy that well.
I've never seen one dog while eating jump on top of another dog and get its legs round and start, getting his arms underneath its rib cage and pulling back. I haven't seen that. Well, I've seen something similar, but not during food. I think there's something else to do. There's something else to do with their breathing as well when animals are galloping. They're breathing. They can't. This is why they can't go. They don't have the same endurance as humans.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
or it's like their breathing is in sync with their locomotion or something. Yeah.
So they just like that's why the human can chase the deer to exhaustion, because the deer it needs to. Oh, I don't know. There's more bad information. I'm just trying to remember it loud.
It's something like if they want to breathe, the more they breathe, the more they have to run, or vice versa, or both, or something like that.
There's an experiment for people. Go chase an animal, find out.
Yeah.
Make it real. Make the internet real. Go and chase an animal, and then let us know.
Yeah. So where do you guys think? What do you think I missed in those standards? Like if someone was to, if you were to have you were set a standard for the nation, what did I miss out on? Like what should people be training?
I would say maybe treading water, I would say the ability to tread water indefinitely, or, kind of a mix of floating and treading water. So just being, again, I have trouble setting hard objective standards, but I like to just say, like, are you comfortable in the water? Can you just can I just drop you off a boat and you'll be okay for a few hours, just kind of floating there and treading water. So yeah, I think definitely water has to be a strong marine component for me, at least. Yeah, because that's so important.
That's an interesting thing. You have for some people, it seems like it's real easy, and it's not necessarily a strength thing or anything like that. Like there's some people that you put them in water and they just don't know how to float. Like they just sink like a stone instantly. They're just not used to it. It's foreign to them, and they really struggle with it. And
you have a lot of data on testing this case. Have you been lobbying people into the Atlantic?
Keith has drowned a few friends.
No, I mean, every test comes back conclusive because the participants they don't come back. But that there's some people that it's you mentioned about it like certain movements being psychological. I think that's one of them. I mean, some people you put in the water and they freak out because they're too worried that they're gonna, like, they feel water come over their face and it's an immediate reaction that they're gonna they feel like they're going under, and it's not necessarily the case. And if you're going to be floating out somewhere for a long time, you're going to get some water splashing over your face in the situation. But yeah, we'll add that in. Sure. Treading water, comfortable in the water.
Yeah, maybe say maybe indefinitely is too high. Maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes. You could do maybe 2 minutes with no hands, just legs. Treading water with just your legs. Hands out of the water. That's a good one.
Something that would be enough to make you survive if you fell in walking along a marina somewhere and you fell in the side or something. So like you maybe have to get round something to get back or something. You have to not panic. You have to, might be at night and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be able to climb that back out too. That was an issue when we were in Hawaii. Erik saw a manta ray and he jumped in the water after a manta ray. And Erik and him, and then they had to get back out, and there was waves like crashing back up against. It was just a big bolt, it was like a. There's not an easy way to get back out. It was just a big concrete bulkhead that was kind of like sharp, jagged rocks sticking out everywhere. And there was like an old dog leash tied to a cleat, cut feet open and shit. Yep. But yeah, I mean, that would be the I don't know, maintain.
Yeah, and that's hard to standardize, you know. That's the thing.
Mhm.
That's why I think your standards are pretty good, because all they really require is a bar overhead, a flat surface, and those are all over the world. And I think the treading water is pretty objective. Water's acts pretty similarly everywhere. Yeah, but there has to be a real life component. I don't know. You have to take these people and throw them out there, or I guess these people have to throw themselves out there and see how they respond.
Yeah. What else? Anything you would add, Kevin?
Maybe something endurance wise involving, just like a hike to some kind of heights for a certain length of time.
Maybe bearing something like a loaded.
Yeah, that would be even better. Yeah. But even just in terms of just because that is something that could be a life deciding thing at one point, at one point in time.
Yeah.
That could just like a walk in talking about indefinite things, like an indefinite walk, like just being able to walk and not
exactly.
ever
If you might
stop.
have to go 20 miles sometime in an emergency, or you might have to run I would ever want to or suggest being like a marathon runner or anything like that, but you would want to be fit enough so that you could, as a one-off, at least give it a go.
Yeah.
And broken into parts or whatever, but at least have a go at it in the circumstances of you had to get to the next village, or you got dropped off somewhere and you had to get somewhere, like 20 miles kind of thing.
Mhm.
That would be a good standard.
Yeah, I'm kind of conflicted when I say something like standard, because I'm hard pressed to. I'm not the type of person to compel someone to do something that like you're required to meet, or a one metric to measure yourself by, like that. If you could do those things, you would be, in my book anyway, you would be considered a fairly fit person.
Just be a politician. Say that it's not a promise, it's an aspiration. It's like you're aiming to, there's things to aim at, because for somebody these might be way beyond them for whatever reason.
Mhm.
But the equivalent, it's kind of just the general idea for people in our sphere. Really, it makes sense, doesn't it? For a specialist type of people, it's like nothing. But for for some people, the walking part will take them a long time just to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I had another guy send me a message, and all he wrote was, "I'm not even close." And I told him, "Well, you pick one thing that you're kind of okay at, and then work at that to get to improve on that." So
the running would be a good one to start with if someone's unfit, building up to the running, because if you can do that, then you're in a more sort of general good state in order to start having to go at the squats and stuff like that. And obviously the push-ups is a good one, because anyone can start, and there's ways of making it easy. I mean, if you're a real state, you could just push yourself back and forth off a wall to begin with. There's something you can actually do straight away and feel like you're getting somewhere with that. And each day, I can do one more today, one more. So a combination between that and getting the running going. I think the stuff to do with legs is really important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really like your general fitness is a lot of it's leg based.
Mm-hmm.
For obvious evolutionary reasons.
Yeah, there's a
with the world, the legs. It's the first point of contact.
Yeah. Alex did a thread about, he does these food, like cooking threads, which are great. And he wrote something in there that I mean, it's nothing that profound or anything, but most of the time when you hear someone describe like something that's good for them, they'll say the health benefits of this food, the health benefits of this exercise, the health benefits of this getting enough sleep. But he wrote the health advantages. and I think that was it's not an inconsequential way of framing that. Like, essentially, it means the same thing, right? Health advantages, health benefits, but advantages, for whatever reason, like the way I interpreted it, it was like that's really going to, like, if you embrace whatever it is that's giving you a health advantage, it's not over, it's like an advantage over your former self. So it's like the growth aspect to it. It's not just a health benefit, you're just consuming it. A health advantage is like you're moving forward with it. So you gain an edge. It's about gaining an edge, and I think that's a more compelling perspective than just saying you have a benefit bestowed upon you.
Yeah, there's something about the word, you attach it to more kind of process of movement from where you are to where you're going or where you've been. Whereas benefits seems kind of static. You're just fixed and you get this bit added, comes in, and then you're just back to normal again after. It doesn't feel part of the growth process. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Advantage is like now you could do something with it. Now you have an advantage, you could do something with it. Benefit is like, I had I don't know, I had $1 and now I have $2. So that's a benefit.
Yeah, it implies that there's more, you've opened up more opportunity next. Whereas benefit just, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So to bring those last 2 points together, if you are able to fulfill the Walkabout fitness standards, you'll have many more health advantages working in your favor.
For example? Not cutting out, you know the rule. Everyone's going to hear the long pause. Keith thinking.
For example, you'll be, well,
no filler words. No filler words.
You'll have a certain level of strength, mobility, and cardiovascular endurance if you're able to do those. So those are all advantageous to be able to operate and play sports well, keep up with other people if they do sports well or whatever it may be. You'll have increased psychological benefits of knowing that you are a competent and fit person.
Benefits or advantages?
Oh, advantages. Sorry. Did I say benefits? I was just testing.
We don't want
testing.
Nobody wants
damn. Yeah. See, it's so well ingrained, the word benefits, like you also automatically think benefits, but there's a better way of looking at it, and it's advantages.
A benefit is something that someone gives you, or
that's the difference.
You get from the government, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Whereas the advantage is something you now have for yourself. You've given yourself an advantage. Yeah, interesting. So, Eric, what would be the equivalent kind of standards for food, diet, nutrition, eating? What would be like basic standards for being able to look after yourself in those areas?
I don't think you could do actual food standards. I think it would be more about, I think you'd have to look at the end product. So you'd have to, like, how's your body composition? So you have to look at the person eating the food, because what will work for a person in terms of food can be very different.
Well, what about basic skills for doing these things?
Ability to read a label in the store, ability to navigate the grocery store, how to navigate a farmer's market, how to get deals, how to make friends with farmers.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
Being able to cook in any kitchen. So anyone being able to cook in that kitchen, if you're outside and all you have is a fire, being able to cook over that, being able to prepare a meal in any condition.
Yeah, that's great.
A standard I don't have that I suppose would be
lots of times, like if you go and travel, sorry.
Sorry, there's a time lag with the bad internet. I was just saying a standard I don't have that would be good would be to know, just basically to know which herbs, etc., go with what kind of foods. Not instinctively, but you just know intuitively what goes with what. But that's part of being able to cook in any kitchen, just using what's there, isn't it? Or using, if any kitchen includes what's growing around outside and what you can collect that day, that would be part of it too, I suppose. None of these things I am good at.
Yeah. Eric's got this this insight about cooking where everything tastes good.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's the secret. Everything tastes good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's I guess this is part of what Keith said about cooking in any kitchen. You should be able to create a good meal out of any sort of batch of ingredients you have at your disposal. So you could have I don't know, salmon and rosemary, to like an herb and meat mixture that usually isn't linked together, but you can make that work. Yeah, well, that's just one thing that I've realized is that everything really tastes good. As long as, you're dealing with good ingredients, generally decent food. Even combinations that you wouldn't expect would taste good often do. And I'm not talking about disgusting things like, I don't know, marshmallows and steak. Although, I mean, I could probably make that work. You probably could. Honestly, yeah.
Just need a fire.
Yeah, essentially it's everything tastes good, everything works out, everything works. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of your intention. Like if you believe that everything works out, everything tastes good, I think there's something that you can inject into your food that is something like energy or love. People talk about love showing up in food. And it's a real...
Sorry about that. I have low broadcasting standards.
No problem.
You were just talking about cooking with love.
Oh yeah.
I believe there's truth to that, and it's just being like you're engaged, you're invested in it, like not so much like you're committed to it turning out well. Well, maybe that is a part of it, but it's like you are you very much want it to work. Yeah. So you're
I wonder if it heightens your sensory perception though, because if you're in the kind of that mode of thinking, everything's more meaningful and connected and integrated, and you're more likely to then intuit the thing that's missing that will give it that extra that it doesn't have. You're kind of maybe a different part of your brain and is linked together with it. I wonder also if it's how like if someone's not it's maybe just more psychological, but if someone's not a confident cook and then they're making the food and they're really like worried about making it right and they don't want to make a mess of it and they've got guests, I'm talking about myself here at one time, and you're stressed over it and it doesn't taste that you think it tastes rubbish, and then you're not happy with it, and then you give it to people and they think it's great, and you think at the beginning you think they're just humoring you, but actually then they convince you they actually really enjoy it and it's good. But it's maybe because you're different mindsets. You're in worry mindset and you're giving all this worry into it. And then the other person is in gratitude because you've just made them a meal and social event and everyone's happy or whatever, or should be. So they see the same experience in a different way. Yep. So if there's more love and that kind of thing in general, things are going to seem nicer, but also might end up actually objectively being nicer as well.
Well, when something seems nicer, it is,
Well, yeah.
I think niceness is totally totally subjective. Like it's not, you can't measure it with
there's no
a
niceness standards.
Yeah. And so what feels nice is nice. So I think there's definitely some what they call the placebo effect at play, and that isn't, it's not, quote unquote just the placebo effect. It's a very powerful thing, and there's no just about it. It's very important. It's very helpful.
It would make sense that it is in food as well, because food is pretty close to medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you could say that one is part of the other one, either way around. So it would make sense that placebo would be in food as well.
And that's not to diminish it at all. That's, I think, to exalt the effect.
Yeah.
For me, at least. I mean, have you ever had where you ever take food to go at a nice restaurant and it's just not as good? It's not the same. It's cooked the same way. Everything about it is identical to what you'd be served on the plate. You could even eat it in the car right after you get it. So it's not a matter of time passing and the food degrading. But the food just isn't as good as if you're sitting down at a nice restaurant with, really nice warm lighting overhead and, a nice glass of wine and the waiter at your beck and call. It's just not the same. And I think it's very similar. I think that's running through all these encounters that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I have a friend who's like that with alcohol. He's like, he goes out, it has to be out in the bar. He just thinks like people who drink in the house are savages, even though he'll go to the bar and drink a lot regularly all the time. But he thinks somebody who stay alone at home and drink one or two is worse than him going out regularly and drinking, because it's not about the drink as much.
I agree.
It's not just about it. Yeah,
I agree with him. I think having a drink, depending on why you're having a drink and where you're having it and who you're with, I think it can have totally different effects on not just your mind state and the subjective effect of being drunk, but also how your liver processes it. I think it can be more unhealthy to drink because you're just bored, and you're alone. I think it's actually it's harder on your liver than to go out and say you just got a promotion or something, or you're at your wedding. You don't really hear about people having terrible hangovers after their wedding.
Yeah, they're up and they're still in the buzz. Yeah.
And they're drinking way more than you would normally. But I don't really hear about any even guests getting hangovers at a wedding, because it's
still drunk. All the ones I've been at.
Yeah, well, yeah, Scotland, huh?
Yeah, still drunk and wearing your kilt usually.
Yeah.
Well, the real drunk people, because they've still got theirs on. That's kind of the rule.
Yeah.
The ones who are still that's the real walk of shame people don't talk about. It's heading back to the hotel with your kilt still on the next morning.
Wait, does everybody really wear a kilt to weddings?
To weddings, yeah. Not everyone, but about at least half of the men will wear one to a wedding, yeah. They even have separate photos, so like the bride and groom are getting all the photos done and family and that. Then they have a separate one for all the guys in kilts will line up. Yeah. And some of the times they'll all lift their kilts as well, and there'll be like a photo of the who is and isn't wearing nothing underneath, which is kind of I don't know how old the tradition this is. I think it's fairly modern in reality, but that's what a true Scotsman is,
That's awesome.
But it's more. I think it's more just I think women invented it as a flirting trick, so they can just go up to guys and ask them about it. Are you true? Like, it's an easy way for them to get going at weddings, because the guys are walking around with, from one perspective, they're walking around in skirts with no underwear, so it's it's different. Anyway, there's a different set of standards. Back to your ones.
The one thing I was thinking about while you guys were saying that was, your story, Kevin, how like if you're worried about if it's going to turn out well, I don't know what is at play here, and it's not like when I'm cooking a meal and I don't exactly know all the ingredients, and I'll tell you an example of this, recent example, but like I always know that it's going to end up good. Like I don't know for sure, but like I'm confident, like whatever I do, it's going to end up, people are going to like it. And I think that it's not like a cocky confidence. It's like or it's not cockiness. It's more like confidence in what you do and that you're making the right decisions. You're not second guessing yourself. And I think that matters a lot. I mean, the example is cooking, but it's in a lot of, I mean, that you could apply that to any domain. But so I'll give you an example. Last weekend, I got together with friends, and so we had went to a farm few weeks ago, and we bought a big like sampler package of the meat that they had, a ranch. And we finally got a chance just last weekend to go over to my buddy's house and grill it all up. So we had a couple different types of steak. We had burgers. We had a big like a chuck roast. And we got there, like I got there, and like we just had the meat. I had never cooked at my buddy's house before. I didn't know what spices he had. I don't know what's in the refrigerator. And so what I did was I took the chuck roast, and the first thing I did, I put in he's got an Instapot. So I used that, and I was like, all right, well, what am I going to season it with in here, or what liquids am I going to add? So I was literally just rummaging around his kitchen and found garlic powder, salt, pepper, apple cider, and sangria. So all those things went in the Instapot after I seared the roast. And then that went on for 2 hours and just shredded it all up. And that ended up like one of the tastiest things of the night. But it was just, I had no idea what that was going to become. But I knew like the idea that all those things were going to taste well together, especially if it had been slow cooking or cooking for a couple hours together. And the meat was great too. It just like fell apart really. And the same thing, like the other steaks, I didn't know what seasonings he had and all that. It's hard to not find good enough seasonings. But even so, like never been in the kitchen, hadn't used his grill before. And you know how every grill is a little bit different. So if you're not accustomed to it, there's certain hot spots. And but everything turned out well. Added a few sides. You can't mess up roasted potatoes. So I did that. Made a quick romaine salad. And as I'm doing this, like it's nothing's planned out ahead of time. And this would be a good example for our conversations about dexterity too. But nothing I had was planned out ahead of time. And I just feel very much in like a flow state because I know approximately in my head, like the order of things, like obviously the burgers can't go on first because they're going to be done like way before any of the other stuff is done cooking. So it's a constant like dance between doing the correct order of things so it all comes out right around the same time and is ready to eat around the same time. And I'm like shuffling back and forth, like testing things throughout. I'm moving from the kitchen outside to the grill and then back to the kitchen, pulling things out of the oven, putting them back on different areas and all that stuff. And it's very much it's like a controlled chaos. And there's something about you before you mentioned something like a heightened state of awareness. And I think that's what it is because there's so many like little things to get right along the way that you have to be hyper aware in the situation and pick up on everything. So you're just kind of living in that fiasco for the time being. And it does, you're like dancing on the edge. There's I've been listening to a little bit of Terrence McKenna lately. I've just been on a kick for that. And he was talking about like the yin yang symbol, the black and the white symbol. And he said the interesting part isn't necessarily the black or the white. It's the mercurial thread between them, like the wave between the two. And that's very much what it is like in a situation of heightened awareness. It's you're right on the edge between like things falling apart and things going really well. And you're kind of just dancing in a hurricane. I mean, it's not that it's not that dramatic, of course, but I'm saying that to make the point of like what's actually going on there. And I think right there is it that also builds into the idea of like doing it with love, because there is the chance of failure and you are taking a bit of a risk and you want it to work out well. And if you have higher stakes, you're more likely to make the right decisions, because you don't want your friends and family to come over and then have a terrible meal for them. So it is like you want to add to the occasion and you want to do it right. So all those things combined, I think, are they're important. It's almost as like it's not something that you could necessarily train for, like practice. I mean, you could make meals yourself or whatever, but that's something that like you learn how to navigate those situations by just having the experience of it and doing it multiple times and learning from that and just having the confidence to do it over and again. I was telling Eric after, because I was telling him about this day like earlier in the week, and I was just saying it's something I really enjoy doing that, because I feel like I'm in such a flow state and everything's moving. I don't know. I feel like you know, when you feel like in the zone or in your element, like that's like you're creating an experience for everyone. It's a nice place to be in.
Yeah, I never really thought about it before, but part of the cooking, if you're cooking for real, then is risk taking, because at some point you can do something that you can't reverse. You know, like you can't mess it up. So there's like an element of risk taking.
Yep.
And it definitely involves dexterity, like physically and mentally. Get the timings right.
You're constantly juggling these things. If you forget
and
about
if people
one
are
thing,
arriving and you're still not finished, and people arrive earlier, like there's all that kind of thing going on and delaying. Like there's a lot of various types of agility you have to juggle with.
I think an important part also is, it's not, cooking isn't binary. It's not like, oh, this thing got ruined. A second before it was perfect, and then a second later it was ruined. So you have sort of wiggle room between a lot of these states of, success and failure. And I think that's usually how things in life are, at least in the natural world. You have a little room to try things out, and it's okay, medium rare, and then it's still medium rare for a while. So it's not like, you fuck up with one, you fuck up once and things are ruined. You have a lot of room to kind of play in the margins. And so I think that's what cooking has taught me, is that it's never really all or nothing. You really do have a lot of room to recover. Of course, once something's burnt, as Kevin implied, then it's burnt, then it's ruined. Yeah. But you have a lot of room before that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like times where I've put too much salt into something, and then there was just too much salt now. You can't really reverse that.
To add more of everything else.
Yeah. But yeah, usually you're there's a back and forward. You're not just going all in with like, well, oh, it needs chili, I'll put all this chili in there. You're like, if you're like, as you're saying, Keith, you're in the dance with it, back and forward, you're on the edge with it. You're going to be step forward, step back, step forward, step back.
Yeah. I'd even argue that most things you can come back from, at least with seasoning. Like if you throw in too much oil or too much salt, you could balance it out with a squeeze of lemon, and a little, like a pinch of sugar even. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot. I think cooking is actually really rewarding. That's the like because I know, Keith, you're the same way. You're not measuring anything.
No.
And you're just salting, you're seasoning, and it feels like you're just doing it, and maybe you have a rough idea of how much to do, but it's always different each time you do it. But it still works out. It still tastes good.
Yeah. It's like you said, there's a big gray area where it's right no matter where you land in that gray area. And cooking especially, everything is redeemable. So almost everything is redeemable.
I'll post on Twitter the next irredeemable meal I make myself.
Yeah, let's see it. Well, you know what's weird is that baking is sort of the opposite. You know, I don't do any baking really. My wife does, but it seems like baking, it's a lot more binary. There's a lot less room for error, and it seems to attract totally different types of people from cooking.
Yeah, because the baking is going to be more. You need the precise amounts. You're going to measure everything. Everything's exact.
Yeah.
Interesting. So remember, Keith, we were talking with in the dexterity video with Alex, but the difference between the classical pianist and the jazz pianist. Classical pianist, very technical, has to be right. Tiny bit of expression on top, but it's all technical, has to be right. Jazz pianists, making the mistakes that's what they work with. It's kind of like that we were talking about. It's the different type of, and we were saying the different personalities would be attracted to one or the other. So like that, that would make sense. The guy with all the the mad scientist type of cook, throwing things in and stuff everywhere, experimenting. Pretty different from the, it's basically like OCD type of personality who wants every detail perfect and then not happy at the end if it's not perfect.
Yep.
I have a friend that most of the time makes very simple meals, simple as in chicken in a pan, or chicken breasts in a pan, and steams vegetables, and that's his meal. And but then when he actually wants to cook, he'll do a very high highly technical dish. He'll read a Julia Child book and do every last thing, measure out how much salt, pepper, and all that, and get the exact everything right. So that's very much not my style. I'm more, and I think Eric is this way too.
No way. I'd rather go on a fast.
Jazz.
I'd rather fast for a week and do that. I'd rather fast for a week than do that.
Yeah. I just make things up as I go along, add things, try them out, and I was always I think I was interested in cooking. I remember watching Food Network shows and just trying out different stuff when I was 8, 9, 10. So at a certain point, you just get a little bit of intuitive knowledge from doing that. You know what kind of flavors go well together and what doesn't. And I still make some I still make some mistakes, but like you said, they're all you can come back from all of them. It's at the end of the day, right? You just have another meal. It's one meal, and then it's not like that the last.
Yeah.
Hopefully, not the last meal you'll ever have. Yeah. But there's infinite number of meals that you could make and try, and they're all pretty good.
I don't think I've ever made anything that I just could not eat, and actually that I couldn't enjoy. Recently I made fettuccine Alfredo, and at the end, I'd served the family, and then I like a lot of pepper on mine, so I was reserving mine to add the pepper, and I grabbed the cinnamon instead, and just because I was using white pepper, so they look very similar, and I just dumped just a ton of cinnamon on the on it. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to eat it because this is dinner. And it was good. It was great. It worked. Yeah, everything, it works. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
everything tastes good.
Everything is good. Yeah. So, I mean, I totally believe that. And it seems to really bear out in reality. I've really never had anything that just did not work.
Yeah. I would probably eat it if I had done that myself, but I wouldn't intentionally add cinnamon to Alfredo just to try it out now.
Well, I mean, because some recipes call for nutmeg, so similar class of spices. The warmer winter spices.
Were you using true cinnamon?
Yeah, that's probably why it worked. It was true cinnamon.
Yeah, the flavor's a bit more delicate than cassia.
Yeah, yeah, Saigon. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Guys,
Kevin,
I have
would
to get out
you?
in a little bit.
What's
I've
that?
got about 5 more minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kevin, you have a postural standard for someone, or a mind-body standard? Maybe that would be a better way of putting it.
Shoulders back, right?
Shoulders back,
Yeah,
chest out.
that's it. Yeah. In terms of like the lessons, the kind of standards would be. It's got more subtle as I've gone on with it, but in the beginning it was much more visible physical things. But then it was making people be too goal oriented and fixing on the end point. So then I made it more about the process. So the standards were more about the accuracy of the movements. So I'm asking people to move, say, like 3 or 4 body parts. Like, say, I want to see specific bones move in a certain direction, left, like, forward or back or whatever. So the standard would be how accurate they are with the movements. Can they move those parts back, or can they move them in the direction they intend to move them, and can they do it alongside 2, 3, 4, 5 other movements? So there'd be that one, and then the other standard would be consistency. Can they maintain those same movements in other things? So sitting is basic, but it's like, say, like standing is basic, but picking up a weight off the ground and standing up and is not basic. But can you maintain can you have consistency of the movements while doing the more advanced action? So that those would be the kind of standards. But in terms of like just visual stuff, it's length of the torso. Are they doing things that make it longer? And I have like a technical definition of that I teach them. But it's not things like, can you sit for X amount of time and stuff? I play with that. I talk about that obviously, but it's not really a standard because you may not want to. Using fascia, but it's hard to make it a standard the same way for similar reasons that you're talking about with the food nutrition, Eric, because obviously
what about just can you use your mind to control whatever? Can you, in like I'm trying to think it up on the fly.
Well, yes, that is what we're doing with the movements, though, because this is mind control over the movements. It's like,
yeah, but like in a precise way. Like, can you move it precise? Can you?
It's also speeds. Can you? Because the more advanced is, can you move? Can you decide you're going to do, like, say, 6 movements at the same time, and can you get them all to work? It takes a long time to get to do 6 different body part movements at the same time, especially if your torso, because you don't have the same control over it as you do of your hands, your feet, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And can you, like more advanced is, can you move certain ones slightly before other ones? But again, you want them all to go at the same time overall, but something might need to go first and stuff. And the only way to know whether you can is with a video, because it's too intricate. So like another set of standards we would have is for somebody when they're practicing on their own, is like, how often are you using the video? How often are you pretending how often are you just having a sneak look in the mirror rather than actually using the video? How often are you practicing? How clear are you when you practice? Are you just going through the motions like it's an exercise, or are you actually consciously reasoning about the movements and doing them? It's kind of hard to measure. Person knows, but so it's kind of self standards. You can't really from the outside tell that.
Yeah.
But you do need standards all the time. I mean, you have to measure things. You can't like go by someone, oh yeah, it feels good now because I did that for ages and it was worse based on the standards I have now. So it was just kind of circular, but that's just the way it is. Yeah. So yeah, I don't really talk about it like the standards though, like for the same reason you said, Keith, because it makes people think that you're like demanding these things, and then it puts them in the wrong frame of mind. Because I want people in the kind of open, exploring mindset, like you're talking even with cooking, where you're just playing around and nothing's going to go wrong. You're probably not going to slip a disc or something, doing something. Although you might feel like really wrong or whatever, but everything's almost everything's recoverable, and it doesn't really matter. And you've got a million other times you're going to stand and sit anyway. Who cares if you do something stupid and look like an idiot in the video now? It doesn't matter. Actually, it's useful. So, like in the same way, I suppose if you're cooking, if you put something in with something and it doesn't really work well, but then you have to try something else, you learn something and it's useful for later. Same idea, same principles in basically everything. Same exactly in the way you're doing the fitness stuff, Keith, as well.
Everything works. If you do it right the first time, then great. You know how to do it. If you fuck up and you learned what not to do, everything's a strength. Everything is a benefit.
Exactly. And if you're automatically good at something, if you're automatically able to do it, you've learned nothing, because it's no use to you, because you've learned no structure for learning things that you don't know. You've just done a few things you could already do. It's you feel good, but it's no learning benefit to you at all. But like that, you have to weigh that with the person. They have to accomplish something. They have to feel like they're getting advantages from what it is they're doing early on, or they'll just, or as the business guys will say, quick wins, or they'll not stick at it. So that's kind of the art to it, I suppose. And maybe with things like cooking, people haven't had that early on, so they never really got into it. They didn't have that time where they pulled it all together at the last minute and it worked really well and everyone reacted well, and that kind of spurred them on to learn more. They just never had that, so they just make their own thing in a corner and don't involve other people.
Yeah.
Do you think good spot to wrap up at?
Yeah.
You said you got to get going, Eric.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. All right.
So,
yeah.
Cool. Any last words on standards? Any more standards?
They're aspirations. They're not standard.
Sorry. Any more advantages?
Yeah, advantages and aspirations.
Yeah. I say just have some. Doesn't so much matter what they are. Have a few you're working toward.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. But if you're not, there's not nothing else I could add to there. I tried to, but it didn't work out. So we'll stick with that. You just cut me off at the end.
No editing. All of it's in, Keith. I'll edit my stuff out. That's bad, but I have to leave your stuff in. Sorry about this. Dexterity, Keith.
Yeah, I'll be better the next time. Good thing this is whatever. Good thing we only get like 6 listens or whatever. All right, that's it. You guys are just egging me on to just rambling to nothingness now. So
we're enabling. We're enablers.
More stupid.